In the morning, my dog Chaplain so looks forward to his friend Wade bringing over his dog Shasta for a walk. In fact, Chaplain sits on the arm of the recliner, looking out the front window, waiting for them to come. So I always know when they've arrived. They don't even need to ring the doorbell because Chaplain has let me know, oh, Shasta and Wade are here. Shasta and Wade are here. And in reality, I look forward to their visit too. Because before we go for our morning walk, Wade most of the time sticks around and has breakfast with me. And I know that Wade's wife, Tony, asks him every once in a while, what do you two talk about at breakfast in the morning? And the answer is, we work at solving all the problems of the world. That's what our conversation is about, is solving all the problems of the world. Because I am so lucky to have a friend like Wade who has an answer to all the questions there are. The man knows everything. And so it's so great to have a friend like that. I'm sure you've got a friend like that around too, right? The person that knows just everything. Well, no, but I'll be honest. Every once in a while, he may not have the answer, so that's no problem. We just turn to Alexa because she knows everything. So we just ask Alexa the question, but then we've come that she doesn't know everything. In fact, sometimes those answers she gives are just like downright stupid. And so if Alexa doesn't know, well, we've got something even better now. We've got Meta AI. Yes, Facebook has artificial intelligence that you can ask your questions to. And some of those answers make us laugh so hard we almost are spitting oatmeal out our nose. It's just too much fun. And so if they doesn't have the answers, don't worry. Google has an artificial intelligence too. And all you have to do is Google an answer and you will get it. You know what? We've come to discover that even Google doesn't have the answer to all the questions. So that makes our time together interesting as we try to work through things. As friends, we strive to solve all the problems of the world. So think for a moment. Do you have questions in need of answers? Do you have questions in need of answers? Where do you go when you're in need of answers? Where do you go when you're in need of answers? You see, I'm so lucky. My office is right here in this building. And there's times I'm sitting in my office and I'm trying to work through something and it's just not coming to me. I'm just not getting the answer that I'm looking for, even with all the books on my bookshelves and all the other resources. I'm just not finding the answers. So I'm so lucky. I just get up from my desk, I walk, and I come and spend some time in here in prayer. Because have you ever thought about going to Jesus with your questions? Have you ever thought about going to Jesus with your questions? Because our faith tells us that Jesus has all the answers. Jesus is the answer to all our questions. And so when we come and spend time in church, in prayer, bringing Jesus our questions, we believe that he is fully present and answers our questions. Remember that wonderful little book that we gave out over 800 copies called Holy Moments? Remember that Holy Moments book by Matthew Kelly? He's got another one. It's called Beautiful Eucharist. Beautiful Eucharist. Of course, Got lots of copies for you, so you can take a copy on your way out. But what I like is Matthew Kelly says this in his book, Beautiful Eucharist. Jesus has all the answers, and he patiently waits for us in the tabernacle day and night to share those answers with us. Next time you are grappling with a decision, stop by your church and ask Jesus for his advice. Receiving Jesus in the Eucharist is the ultimate spiritual experience. But there is also something powerful about just sitting in his presence. There is also something powerful about just sitting in his presence. And I can testify to that. Just spending time in his presence, I am always in awe and wonder at how he answers my questions. Not always in the same way, but in many varied ways, depending what my need is. Jesus answers the questions because Jesus will provide and fulfill for all of our needs. Isn't that what he did in today's Gospel of John? Didn't he fulfill all the needs of the people? He was curing them. He was teaching them. And when they were hungry, he fed them, took what little they had and made it into more than enough. We hear in the Gospel of John chapter 6, verse 13 and 14, they filled 12 wicker baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world." Now notice what they said. They didn't say, "This is truly the best cook we've had in a long time, who's just really filled us up. This isn't the best provider of barley loaves and fish that we've ever seen before." Truly the prophet. They recognized that it was more than just the food. He was providing them the answers to that deep longing that they had. They had this longing in their hearts. And Jesus was fulfilling that longing. When you have a longing, come to Jesus. When you're looking for that prophetic advice, come spend time in the divine presence and ask Jesus your questions. What I love is that it's a safe, quiet place to come. Because I don't want you to be surprised, but I think it's going to be getting a little crazy in this country the next couple of months, don't you think? Just a teeny bit. It's getting harder and harder to pray in this world. It just seems to be getting noisier and noisier. But we have a place here that is quiet and safe. I mean, that's why we're so blessed with this new activity center, because now we can keep this a sacred space, a sacred place where people can come and spend time in prayer in the real presence. Matthew Kelly put in the book, Beautiful Eucharist, it is getting harder and harder to find a quiet place in the world. But one of the great gifts that the Catholic Church gives to us all is places that are set apart for quiet reflection. Places that are set apart for quiet reflection. Did you notice in today's gospel, even Jesus went to a place for quiet reflection? I heard in the Gospel of John chapter 6, verse 15, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain alone. Notice the word again. He did this more than once. So I'm extending a special invitation to all of you, because we are just beginning a new preaching series starting today, focusing on the beautiful Eucharist. Because during the next few weeks, in our scripture readings at Mass, we are going to be going through the entire 6th chapter of the Gospel of John. The entire 6th chapter of the Gospel of John. That's the bread of life chapter, where Jesus says, I am the bread of life. And so we are going to be spending time. And so what we're doing is we're opening up this space for you to come and spend time in quiet prayer during the exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. That you can come and bring Jesus your questions. Spend time. And so it's so interesting because sometimes it's like, well, what do you do when you're there? Well, whatever your heart leads you to do. Have a conversation with Jesus. Ask him a question. Bring a copy of the book, Beautiful Eucharist, and just read one chapter at a time. One chapter at a time. We are also giving out free copies of the Bible. Spend time each week focusing on the 6th chapter of the Gospel of John, because our Gospel reading from tonight was chapter 6, verse 1 through 15. So spend this week just reflecting on chapter 6, verses 1 through 15, just 1 through 15. How is Jesus speaking to you in that passage? And so, how many of you have questions that need answers? How many of you have questions that need answers? Well, come and ask Jesus.